we're gonna have to wait just a little bit longer before swinging back into the Spider-Verse. The third chapter in Sony's groundbreaking animated saga, Beyond the Spider-Verse, just shifted its release date from June 4th to June 25th, 2027. It's only a 3-week delay, and according to Variety, the move is purely strategic. Dropping it right in the middle of summer break means more kids are out of school, more families have free time, and more people can hit theaters. Makes sense, right? But honestly, I think there's more to it than just timing, and that's not a bad thing. Production isn't in chaos, nothing's falling apart, far from it. In fact, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the duo behind the series, have been crystal clear. They're not rushing this. Every Spider-Verse movie has been about pushing boundaries. Visually, technically, emotionally. And if you've seen the first two, you know they've nailed it every single time. The original Into the Spider-Verse didn't just raise the bar, it blew the doors wide open on how animation could look. The art style, the frame rate tricks, the comic book textures, it was unlike anything we'd seen before. It didn't just inspire fans, it lit a fire across the entire animation industry. Suddenly DreamWorks, Disney, and everyone else were rethinking their approach. Animation wasn't just for kids anymore, it was stylish, daring, and straight up cinematic. Then came Across the Spider-Verse, and somehow it topped all of that. The characters grew deeper, the action went bigger, and the multiverse itself just exploded with creativity. Spider people from every dimension imaginable showed up. The emotional punches landed harder, the twists cut deeper, and it left Miles Morales hanging on one of the wildest cliffhangers in superhero movie history. Now Beyond is set to bring it all home and wrap this trilogy in a way that honors everything that came before. That's no small task. Lord and Miller have admitted this is the toughest one they've ever made, not just creatively but technically too. Animation has leveled up massively since the first film, and now they're pushing even further. More detail, more spectacle, more raw emotion. Wrapping up one of the most beloved Spider-Man stories ever? That's a massive challenge. And here's what a lot of people forget. Making an animated film is insanely complex. In some ways, even harder than live action. It starts with endless drafts and rewrites, then concept art and storyboards. Voice recording is another puzzle entirely, juggling actors spread out across different cities and schedules. And the animation itself, that process can stretch on for years, with huge teams working non-stop. Then you've still got editing, scoring, effects, and all the post-production magic to tie it together. And this movie isn't just big, it's massive. 6 unique animation styles, dozens of fully realized characters, and whole universes that feel alive and breathing. Sony's promising that this finale will be even more ambitious than the first two combined. And a film on that scale doesn't happen in a year or two. It takes time, which is why I think this delay could mean something bigger. Maybe they're fine-tuning the story to expand the Spider-Verse even further. Maybe it's a soft reset, maybe it's groundwork for spin-offs, Gwen's arc could be getting more focus, or maybe Miles' story doesn't actually end here, and they're figuring out how to transition him into something even bigger. Because if Beyond the Spider-Verse sticks the landing, it won't just be a satisfying finale, it could redefine what animated superhero films are capable of. The heart of this movie is still going to be Miles versus the Spot, and that's where things get heavy. The third film is expected to focus squarely on their showdown, with Miles desperately trying to save his dad from the fate he already saw coming. Jason Schwartzman is officially back to voice the Spot, which lines up with what director Kemp Powers told Total Film. From the start, the Spot's arc was always planned to stretch across 2 movies, and his story is tightly bound to Miles' journey. That's what makes him so dangerous. He's not just a trippy visual gimmick, he's a genuine threat, one who directly challenges everything Miles stands for. And now, all of that is barreling toward a final collision. Beyond is expected to pick up exactly where Across left off. Miles stranded in Earth 42, staring down a darker version of himself, the one who became the Prowler. Based on the latest stills, it looks like the movie's opening will dive right into that moment. And yeah, we're probably getting a Miles vs. Prowler Miles fight to kick things off, but don't expect it to be the movie's main storyline. The Prowler isn't joining the Spider team. Still, you can bet he'll reappear when it matters most. Maybe in a third act twist, maybe during a pivotal moment where he crosses paths with another version of his parents. The theories practically write themselves, and that's half the fun of this universe. All of this loops back to one of the trilogy's biggest setups, the spider that bit Miles. That wasn't just any spider. It came from Earth 42. If Prowler Miles had become his world's Spider-Man, his city wouldn't be the grim, crime-ridden mess it is now. His dad might still be alive. the Sinister Cartel wouldn't run the place. But because that spider was ripped into the wrong dimension, Earth 42 lost its Spider-Man before it even had one, leaving Miles to grow up under Uncle Aaron in pure chaos. That alternate origin completely reframes who this darker Miles is, and how his story could unfold. Of course, we know the main Miles is going to find a way out. That's just basic story logic. But the real question is, what happens to him after that? How does coming face to face with his Prowler self affect his mindset? Will he start doubting whether he even belongs in the Spider-Verse at all? That uncertainty ties directly back to Miguel's whole canon event dilemma. According to Miguel, Miles' dad is destined to die. It's a fixed point, a canon event, something that absolutely has to happen. But is that really true? Look closer, and the cracks start showing. Gwen's dad was a captain too, and by Miguel's logic, his resignation should have destroyed her universe. But it didn't. Earth 65 didn't collapse. Gwen is still swinging through the multiverse. Her story kept going, so maybe Miguel is wrong, or maybe he's just not telling the whole truth. Across the Spider-Verse left us with that jaw-dropping twist. The Miles we've been following got stuck in a parallel universe, where his double grew up to become the Prowler. That reveal alone had fans buzzing, but then Shemaik Moore turned up the hype when he teased that he'd actually be playing 3 versions of the character in Beyond. Naturally, the internet exploded. For a second, it felt like we'd gotten our very first real spoiler for the movie, but Moore quickly walked it back, clarifying that he just meant this is the 3rd movie he's voicing Miles in. Not that we're getting 3 different variants of the character. Still, was that genuine clarification, or a little bit of damage control? Because not long after, reliable industry insider Alex Perez doubled down, saying that yes, there will absolutely be more versions of Miles in Beyond the Spider-Verse, and some of them won't even be voiced by Moore. That would be a first for this trilogy, and honestly, it sounds like a massive story reveal waiting to happen. Fans have been dying to see how this story ends ever since Across the Spider-Verse left Miles stranded in Earth 42, but the wait turned brutal when Sony delayed the trilogy's finale, and that hype got even bigger with the tease about more Miles variants. Because remember what Miguel said in Across? Miles was never supposed to be Spidey in the first place. He's the original anomaly. That multiversal spider that bit him, it left another world without a Spider-Man entirely. But we still don't know if Miguel's right, or if it's just his paranoia fueling this whole crusade. If Beyond does introduce multiple versions of Miles, then we might finally get our answer. Imagine different Miles across the multiverse, all with powers, all becoming Spider-Man in their own realities. That would shatter Miguel's entire argument. But what if some of them aren't Spider-Man at all? What if they're just regular kids, without powers, without the mask? That would raise even bigger questions about our Miles, and whether he truly changed his own destiny, or if he really did break the multiverse just by existing. And where even was Miguel when Gwen was jumping dimensions back in the first movie? These so-called ironclad rules already seem flexible at best. Gwen's dad quits the Force, survives, and nothing breaks. So who's to say Miles' dad can't survive too? Maybe all this canon talk is just fear-based control, or Miguel's own desperation to keep order. Because when you step back and look at it, the Spider-Verse rules are already full of exceptions, which means everything in Beyond the Spider-Verse is up for grabs. Miles becoming Spider-Man was never supposed to happen. He's the anomaly. And yet, even with the rules broken, good still came from it. That's what Miles believes, that things can still be saved, even when destiny says otherwise. His refusal to accept a pre-written fate is the heartbeat of Across. And the wild part? Miguel seems blind to the bigger picture. Remember when Miles escaped from him? The go-home machine identified him as a Spider-Man from Earth 42. That's the overlooked clue. It's why he ends up in the wrong dimension, the one without a Spider-Man, because the spider that bit him was never meant for his universe. It was meant for Prowler Miles. And that tiny glitch didn't just change his life, it sent shockwaves through the entire Spider-Verse. That's why Beyond the Spider-Verse is expected to open with a huge showdown on Earth 42, the 2 Miles going head-to-head. And honestly, you can't really blame the Prowler. Across even teased this through a quick news broadcast, J. Jonah Jameson reporting that the Sinister Six cartel has taken full control of the city. That's the world this version of Miles was handed. He didn't make one bad call, he grew up in a system where he never had real choices at all. So now we've got one Miles fighting to break fate and save his dad, and another who's lived his whole life under the crushing weight of a broken city. When they collide, it's not just about punches, it's about what each of them believes in. That's the real heart of this story. By Miguel's logic, Earth 42 shouldn't even exist anymore. A canon-breaking anomaly like that? It goes against everything in his so-called rulebook, but it's still here, dark, corrupted, drowning in crime, but still alive. And that fact alone proves Miguel's either flat-out wrong or deliberately ignoring the truth. At the same time, there's an emotional layer building between the two Miles. The Prowler will see himself in OG Miles, not just in appearance, but in spirit. That same raw drive, that same desperate urge to save a parent, that was once his motivation too. And for OG Miles, facing the Prowler is like staring into a mirror. It's a chilling glimpse of what his own life could have been if he'd lost his father earlier, or if he never had Spider-Man's legacy to guide him. This clash is about more than fists. It's about empathy, perspective, and that razor-thin line between hope and despair. The opening act of Beyond will almost definitely lean hard into this duality. The internal and external clash between the two Miles will set the emotional spark that carries the rest of the film, and for OG Miles, it'll only fuel his determination to carve out his own path. He's done letting Miguel's canon events dictate his life. He's Spider-Man, and Spider-Man always tries to save everyone, even when the odds look impossible. That's been Miles' entire story from the beginning. He doesn't let the world make his choices for him. He chose his college, his future, his identity, and now he's making the biggest choice of all, to fight for his father's life, no matter what fate supposedly says. If he succeeds, if he manages to break the cycle without breaking the multiverse, it would be the perfect conclusion to his trilogy. But don't expect it to wrap up neatly. Someone's probably going to pay the price. That's how these stories usually go. And honestly, all signs point to Gwen. She's already said it herself. Spider-Man never gets a happy ending. It's a tragic theme that's run through her story in the comics. And if she ends up sacrificing herself to save Miles or rewrite the canon, it would be heartbreaking, but powerful. The emotional payoff would be massive. Do I want it to happen? No way. Because maybe things don't have to play out like that. Maybe Miguel's wrong about destiny being fixed. Maybe the multiverse isn't built on order, it's built on chaos. Maybe these characters can break the rules and still come out okay. Gwen's death might feel canon, but that doesn't mean it's inevitable. And don't forget, Beyond is confirmed to bring in alternate versions of Gwen. That opens up a ton of possibilities. Personally, I'd love to see Carnage Gwen from the comics, where Otto Octavius cloned her using symbiote DNA. Imagine that kind of wildcard thrown into the mix. Totally chaotic, completely off the wall, but exactly the kind of madness the Spider-Verse thrives on.